We should have recognized that as early as 2014. And at the very latest, since the year 2022, we now know that it is a brutal war of aggression waged by Russia versus Ukraine, and indeed against Europe. And if Ukraine falls, it won't stop there. Just as the strategically important Sudetenland region was not enough for the aggressive expansionist policies in the fateful year of 1938. Putin will not stop.
Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz draws one of the starkest historical parallels yet, comparing Russian President Vladimir Putin to Adolf Hitler and warning that Europe itself is now in danger. Speaking at a Christian Democratic Union conference in Munich, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz delivered a blunt and unsettling warning. He said Vladimir Putin's ambitions will not stop with Ukraine. Mertz compared the Kremlin leader's strategy to Nazi expansion in the 1930s. He referenced the Sudetenland Agreement of 1938, when Europe ceded territory to Adolf Hitler in the hope of peace, a hope that quickly collapsed into wider war. Mertz warned that appeasement failed then and would fail again today. He said just as the Sudetenland was not enough for Hitler, Ukraine will not be enough for Vladimir Putin. The German chancellor told delegates that if Ukraine falls, Russia's aggression will extend beyond its borders, placing Europe itself at risk. Mertz described the invasion as a Russian aggressive war, directed not only against Ukraine, but against the European continent as a whole. He warned of a fundamental redrawing of Europe's borders. According to Mertz, Putin's ultimate aim is the restoration of the former Soviet Union within its historic boundaries, a move that would dismantle the post-Cold War order. In his speech, Mertz also delivered a blunt message about the United States, saying the decades of Pax Americana are largely over for Europe and for Germany in particular. He said Washington is now pursuing its own interests with increasing toughness, and that Europe must respond by defending its own interests and strengthening its strategic independence.
And many of those influential individuals who were politically responsible in Europe at that crucial time referred directly to this significant book and subsequently drew a clear and compelling analogy between 1914 and 2014. Historical analogies, while often insightful, should always be treated with considerable caution and a critical eye. However, the profound conclusion drawn from this particular historical comparison, that one should now diligently prevent quietly and silently drifting into a devastating conflict, much like the tragic events of 1914, has, at least in retrospect and with the benefit of hindsight, unequivocally proven to be a fundamentally and profoundly wrong historical analogy. Indeed, it would probably have been far more accurate and pertinent to use the deeply significant year of 1938 as the more appropriate and relevant historical analogy for the situation at hand. That was actually the pattern. We should have recognized that as early as 2014. And at the very latest, since the year 2022, we now know that it is a brutal war of aggression waged by Russia versus Ukraine, and indeed against Europe. And if Ukraine falls, it won't stop there. Just as the strategically important Sudetenland region was not enough for the aggressive expansionist policies in the fateful year of 1938. Putin will not stop.
The decades of Pax Americana are largely over for us in Europe and for us in Germany as well. It no longer exists the way we once knew it. And nostalgia won't help either. And I would be one of the last people not to gladly indulge in that nostalgia. But it doesn't help. That's just how it is. The Americans are now pursuing their own interests very, very forcefully. And that can only mean one thing, that we now also have to pursue our own interests. This is fundamentally about the profound and significant change of established borders across the entirety of Europe, specifically concerning the restoration of the old powerful Soviet Union within its former historical borders, presenting a massive and undeniable threat, including a direct military threat to all the sovereign countries that once previously belonged to that vast and influential empire. And at the latest since 2022, we know that this is a war of aggression by Russia against Ukraine, against Europe. And if Ukraine falls, it won't stop there.
Mertz's remarks underline a shifting balance in transatlantic relations, as European leaders prepare for a future with less reliance on American security guarantees. Alongside French President Emmanuel Macron and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Mertz has been pushing stronger European coordination in support of Kyiv. German, British, and French officials are reportedly holding intensive discussions this weekend on proposals to end the war in Ukraine, ahead of a leaders' meeting scheduled for Monday. The diplomatic push includes Washington, with U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff expected to meet Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Zelensky is also set to be received by Mertz in Berlin. At the center of talks is a U.S.-backed 20-point peace plan still under negotiation. The proposal includes potential territorial concessions by Ukraine. One option being discussed would turn the Donbass region into a free trade zone, allowing American companies to operate freely, an idea likely to divide opinion in Kyiv and across Europe. Mertz's speech has also drawn attention to his personal history. His maternal grandfather, Joseph Paul Sauvigny, served as mayor of Brilon from 1917 to 1937 in what is now North Rhine-Westphalia. Sauvigny was initially a member of the conservative Center Party, but joined Hitler's Nazi Party after the Nazis took power in the early 1930s, a fact now resurfacing as Mertz invokes the lessons of history. From Moscow, the response remains defiant. President Putin has repeatedly insisted that Russia would not attack NATO unless it is attacked first. Putin has also stressed the need to combat historical revisionism, particularly attempts to diminish the Soviet Union's decisive role in defeating Nazi Germany during the Second World War. The USSR lost an estimated 27 million people in that conflict, including Putin's older brother, who died during the siege of Leningrad. Speaking on Victory Day in Moscow in 2023, Putin warned of rising supremacist ideologies and accused Western globalist elites of inciting Russophobia and aggressive nationalism. Putin has repeatedly argued that NATO expansion and Western military ties with Ukraine are among the root causes of the war, now entering its third year. Last month, he accused Western nations of seeking to dismember Russia and strip it of its sovereignty.